Well, good morning, everybody. This is a little weird because I'm doing this the day before. I actually have some things going on tomorrow morning, which will be Friday morning when you will see this. But I did want to get something out there. I want you to be able to see what it is that we're still working on here in James and now in chapter 2. Starting in verse 14, it seems to cause some contention on the face of it because James makes a point of saying faith without works is dead, which some people say is a contradiction to what Paul was saying in Romans chapter 4, verses 4 and 5, where he says, "Now to him who works, the wages are not counted as grace, but as debt. But to him who does not work, but believes on him who justifies the ungodly, his faith is accounted for righteousness." So it seems like there are two opposing views on faith and works. On the one hand, Paul is saying, you remember this, "For by grace are you saved through faith, that not of yourself, it is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast." But then James is saying that faith without works is dead. So which one is right? Which one should we adhere to? Let me assure you that they are both right and both are to be understood. And it's important that we understand what both of these mean. Either one without the other becomes dangerous and deceptive. So don't get so hung up on the idea that we are only, it's all about grace and faith and it's not about works and works don't count. One, we know that you can't work hard enough to earn your salvation. It is simply a gift. It comes only through the grace of God and the sacrificial atoning death of Jesus Christ on the cross of Calvary. The faith that it takes to get saved, to receive Christ, really is just a gift of God. But the faith that comes with salvation must have works attached to it. Grace gives you faith to get you saved. Faith alone saves, but a faith that saves is never alone. Not from somebody I quote very much, but that's Calvin that said that. Faith alone saves, but a faith that saves is never alone. And so James gives us basically two examples here to prove his point. James chapter 2 verse 15 says, "If someone comes to you naked and hungry, and you say, 'Go your way, be clothed, be filled,' but you don't give them what they need, what good is that?" There's no profit in that. That whole idea seems a bit ridiculous from the very beginning, but he's making the point. You can say you have faith, and you can even speak faith, but real faith has action attached to it. In other words, do something with your faith and because of your faith. Otherwise, it's just words, and it's not helpful, and it's not meaningful. I remember years ago, in much of my schooling years in Bible history and whatnot, we studied a lot about Martin Luther, who struggled as a young priest in training. And his struggle was that he didn't understand how you could actually be good enough to get saved, how that you could work your way, into heaven, that you could please God by the things that you do, because he kept finding himself falling short, sinning, doing stuff wrong, even small things. And he was always going to I think they called him the confessor father, and he would confess his sins. And finally, the priest said, "You just got to back off. You're just going overboard on this." But the way Martin Luther kind of broke it down is he called what he called the credo faith. It is all the religious words and the creeds memorized and quoted, but never really lived out or put into action. And so the book of Romans basically changed the life of Martin Luther. And the main thing that got Martin Luther thinking different was when he read those words, and he read it more than once, "The just shall live by faith." By faith. It's not just a hopes, where I just hope so. It's not a hope so kind of faith, but a faith that affects the way that we live and everything that we do. Hebrews deals with this in chapter 11 also, when it says in verse 1, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." I like to call it a now faith. It is not just something we think about for the future. It is not a faith that is about what I think. It's a faith that controls what I do. It's really all about what I do with what I believe concerning God and His Word. So all of Hebrews 11 is talking about a now faith and how it moves one to act. It moves a person to action. And if you go through the Hebrews 11, the faith chapter hall of fame as it is, that everything you read, this by faith they did this, by faith Abraham did that, by faith Noah. And so, I mean, it goes on and on, that faith causes us to move. It causes us to do something. And so that was one of the first example that he gave about when someone comes to you and they have a need, you can't just, your faith isn't really working if you're just speaking that faith. Really, you need to show them some works because of your faith. And so, number two, the second piece of understanding James gives us is in, hang on, I'm working here, hang on. It's understanding James gives us in James chapter 2, verse 19. He said, you believe that there's one God, you do well. Even the demons believe and tremble. Sometimes I get so far off of my notes that the thing doesn't work, and so my notes are not always where they're supposed to be. Can you guess what he is saying here? He's saying basically anybody can believe in God, but not everybody will believe God, will have faith enough to do something with what they believe. Of course, the devil believes, but that is not a saving faith. In fact, the devil trembles, he says, because he knows of his impending judgment, that judgment is going to come and he is going to fall once and for all. But even though he believes God and he knows what's going to happen, it's still not a saving faith. Your faith shouldn't just be a belief in God. It has to have some feet to it. There are a whole lot of people who have this credo faith, and a credo faith is one that maybe knows the hymns and knows all the great hymns of the past, knows the creeds, the Apostles' Creed and so on, and even knows some Bible verses. But if it doesn't have works attached to it, it is not a faith that works. And if you remember in the book of James, we were always talking about, over and over again, it talks about a faith that works. Not just a faith that is there, not just a faith that we can talk about, but one that actually has work attached to it. One that will work in your life when everything else seems to not work. A faith that moves you at times when you don't know what to do. It takes you places when you don't know where to go. This is exactly what James says in the next verse, James chapter 2, verse 20. He said, do you want to know? Do you not see, O foolish man, that faith without works is dead? There has to be something. I'll be honest with you, I get pretty excited thinking about some of the opportunities that are ahead of us. I know you're tired, and I am too. You just get tired of COVID, politics, problems, and all the other stuff that comes along with it. And sometimes you just want to throw your hands up and say, y'all go do your thing and I'll just do my thing. But that's not really what faith is all about. Faith is what gets us up in the morning and gets us moving in the direction that God wants us to go. There should always be some type of a work, an act that is attached to our faith. When other people are around us and they see us, they need to know what is on the inside of us. They need to see faith at work, and that's what James is trying to tell us in chapter 2. And so I want to encourage you not to be one of those people who say, I am a Christian, but never do anything with the faith that God has given you. God gave you the faith that it took to get you saved. I mean, it says clearly that he gives every man the measure of faith. That faith is what it takes for us to come to Christ, to get saved, to get our name written in the Lamb's Book of Life. We're going to have that. We have that. But faith doesn't just stop there. Faith isn't just so you can get a better job or a bigger house. It's not even just so that you can get to heaven. God has some work for believers in this world and today, not just somewhere out in the future. God has something for us to do, each one of us, to live, to grow and to be more like Christ, and to show our faith and to give our faith. You know, there's a lot of principles in the Bible that teaches us that who God really is. And if we believe God is who he says he is, then we are going to be willing by faith to do some things that God has told us to do. It goes from everywhere, from loving your enemies, you know, to giving of your resources and of your time, and investing in the lives of others, a drink of water to the thirsty, a bite of food to the ones that are hungry. There's all of these things that God has revealed to us based on his nature and his character. And the only way that we're ever going to get it out there is to let our faith not just be something that we say or talk about, or even something that we just think of in our head, but that we actually do works. That our acts and our actions are about our faith, where others can see it. And I'll be able to say this too. None of this is on notes anymore. I quit a long time ago. But I will say that the more that you do for God by faith, the easier it is to do more for God by faith. Because God doesn't reject faith. When you're doing what God has asked you to do by faith, then God is going to do some things in your life that you're going to know only God could do. And it's just going to increase your faith and increase your ability to believe God. Not just believe in God, but to believe God and his word and what he has said and what he has for us. I don't know where any of this stuff is going to go that we're still plowing through right now. And I know school is back in session, but I don't know how long that's going to last either. But nonetheless, none of that stuff really affects our relationship with God, in the sense that he still is working his plan. He still has a plan, and he still has something for each one of us to accomplish during this period of time. And we will not accomplish it by fear. We know that. God's not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. But we also won't accomplish it by our anger. Remember, the anger of man doesn't work the will of God. So, I mean, we know these things. The only thing that's going to get us through and make us productive and make us profitable during this period of time is going to be what we do based on the faith that we have in who God is and who he says that we are. So that is important, I think, for us to keep in mind. Happy Friday. I hope your day goes well. I hope that everything that you seek to do turns out to be something very good. Until next time, God bless you. Love you. Bye-bye.